World Serve Ministries was founded in 1973, essentially by Garth Hunt. Garth and Betty were missionaries to Vietnam through the 60s and early part of the 1970s. They were called back from the missions field, or left the missions field in Vietnam, basically when the Vietnam was falling to the communists. Came back to Canada and in 1973 started working with Dr. Kenneth Taylor with the Living Bible translation. And basically they were looking for a funding mechanism to promote and develop the scriptures into 100 different common vernaculars around the world. Garth working closer with Dr. Kenneth Taylor. Kenneth Taylor's like, Garth, we need a funding mechanism out of Canada. Would you head that up? So in 1976, World Serve Ministries was born, really as Living Bibles International of Canada. And we worked very closely to put scriptures into the field all over the world. And through the history of the organization, we started working with the Nationals in the 80s, and then in the 90s we started working more with pastoral support and coming alongside and equipping these indigenous church planting movements. So over the course of the 30 years that World Serve's been in existence, we've worked in North Africa extensively, including Algeria, Libya. We've done bookstores there, some kingdom business type initiatives. We've been in Egypt, Ethiopia, Macedonia, Kosovo. Basically pick a country, and World Serve's had an impact for Christ in those areas. In 1992 to 93, really a shift happened in the organization, and that's when we started working with these indigenous groups and supporting church planting movements. Just realizing that God had raised up an indigenous church, and people were being equipped and mobilized, and the Holy Spirit was winning thousands for Christ. We realized, hey, missions has been a huge success. Western missions going into the field and planting churches, but those Christians that were raised up have taken ownership of the faith, and God is speaking to them and revealing Himself to these nations through indigenous church planters. We said, what better way for us to partner instead of us doubling up and doing something perhaps not as effective as we could? We have these culturally sensitive indigenous people who are effectively reaching their countries for Christ, and instead of it being seen as a Western religion or something from Europe or North America, it's become a homegrown church. So now today we see in China where the church, after the People's Revolution, it's grown to estimates of 150 million people. In Cuba, the same thing. In 1992, I think the estimates of church, house church and church size is about 1,100 churches and house churches. Today it's somewhere around 17,000 house churches and churches in Cuba. World Serve's had the blessing to be a key part of this through some of the strategic partnerships we've had with numerous denominations in Cuba and with up to 28 different house church movements in China today that we're working with. That's where we're at. God's called us to be a bridge and a network with these people and equip and basically lose our identity and come along and support them in what God's already called them to do and helping them do it effectively and more effectively. And then also allowing Western groups, people like yourself and me, to join in what God's doing. We've gone through organizationally a number of changes in the last number of years. Obviously we've had, every organization goes through this. As we've been identifying strategically where we go, that's one of the reasons why we're working in Cuba and China now as our focus countries. We have an expertise there and very well-developed networks. Going forwards, under Ted's leadership, we'll be identifying new countries in which to participate where we can do an effective gospel. By the year 2020, we see World Serve as being the vehicle for transformational development and enabling indigenous church groups to win their people groups for Christ. And we're seeking God's direction and leadership on which countries we add, which partners that we work with, and really faithfully and prayerfully considering where God would have us go. And this will be formulating over the next few years. People can get involved. Number one, prayer. World Serve Ministries is a faith-based, prayer-based organization. We really covet our supporters' prayers and people who are excited about missions and people in China and Cuba coming to know Christ. Prayer is number one. Obviously, financially is another. People can get involved through giving. They can get involved in volunteering with the ministry and saying, hey, we'd like to share the story of World Serve. One slogan that we've used in the past is know the story, tell the story, be the story. Or be the story, know the story, tell the story. But we want people to be involved and really take ownership in their participation in World Serve. World Serve's ministry is not World Serve's own. It's our partners. It's the people who are supporting us financially, praying for us. God's using all of this to build His kingdom through World Serve Ministries. And we're one of many ministry organizations that God's called to effective ministry. But through all these things, people can participate financially. They can come with us on vision trips to come in and see what God's doing. We're looking to, with our compassionate aid strategy, to have people come who can minister, whether that be medical or assisting in rebuilding devastated areas. We're looking at putting those strategies together. So there's a myriad of different ways that people can become involved with World Serve. And obviously, check out our website or call our office and to know more. World Serve Ministries is a member of the ECFA in the United States, which is the Evangelical Council of Financial Accountability. And we're also a member of the Canadian Council of Christian Charities in Canada. And those are voluntary accountability organizations that we are members of. World Serve has a board of directors in the United States and a board of directors in Canada who we report to on a very regular basis. They are our watchdogs, if you will, a group of businessmen and volunteer board. It's not paid. We have just godly men who we report to and they oversee and hold us accountable to the vision that God's put before us. World Serve is a small organization financially, and we do our best to maximize the dollars that go to the field. And we don't have a lot of frills. And World Serve is committed just to deploying resources into our ministry programs overseas.